mission, we will go with our correspondents in different parts of the world to forecast the human future of 2030. Let's start with Xochitl Martinez in North America. We hear you, Xochitl.
Regarding North America as the third largest continent of the world, we could face several changes. Moreover, we believe that some of the most important ones are the climate change for 2030, which the Director of the National Intelligence, DNI, says that will increase proportionally, meaning that the dry areas will get drier and the wet areas will get wetter. However, he affirms that we will not live in a world of scarcities, but instead a world of policies and restrictions. In fact, there have been arising several agencies among agents to achieve the goal of greening, to overcome or prevent the climate change. In another perspective, North America's population is expected to grow 14 to 31% according to the UN population device. Moreover, it is expected that all three countries have the same growth rate with a small significance in Mexico. As a result of this growth, each country will be less isolated, borders might get thicker, and the sense of place will arise among all three countries, sharing traditions, values, and culture.
Thank you, Sachel. That's definitely an issue we'll be keeping an eye on. Now let's listen to Fernanda Contreras, down in Central and South America.
The Inter-American Dialogue states that by the year 2030, there will be an increase in this region, but of inequality. According to the United Nations Global Development, this is a threat to humankind. Therefore, as this region is known for having a lot of inequality, the problems will rise in different countries, such as Colombia, Honduras, Chile, Guatemala, and Brazil. Therefore, this means that as this problem rises, more people will be involved in illegal activities, such as drug trafficking, that, as we all know, affects the growth and development of a country. Also, it is expected for this part of the world to become a solid network. It can have either two endings, a positive or a negative one. The positive one is that they grow as a whole and benefit almost all of the countries in this region, but it can also fail. And if this happens, means that drug cartels will have an easier access to control the countries, there will be more inequality, and also there will be an economic blockage. The median projection indicates that population will grow in a significant way. In 2015, there were about 624 billion people in this area, but by year 2030, there will be around 721 million people. The governments of these countries must make their decisions carefully in order to have prosperity and do not enter in a period of decay. Thank you, and we'll go back to the studio.
Thank you, Fernanda. 2030 does hold promising events for us. Now, let's listen to Fernanda Delgado to explore Asia and to see what is next for this rising continent.
We will hear about a situation where China will finally leave the US behind. Bearing all of the above mentioned in mind, we dare forecast the China of 2013, whose location will play the first economy and strength. Despite not having signed the Kyoto Protocol to the present day, China is said to be receiving some $782 million US investments in solar and wind energy sectors. It will be a sustainable, non-fossil fueled China. Also, native economists will be influenced internationally for the very first time, since our country's economy will have surpassed the US, who would be third in the list after China and India. It will be a consequence of an American productivity of capital and labor finally left behind, this by countries with about 4 times as much population. These masses in Asia can certainly be matched, and the collectivism found among the cultures therein located is quite unique. It could be said that the one trait of this Asianism, what binds Asian people together, mainly responsible for the inevitable rise of the continent, is hard work resilience. Going deeper into the Indian economy of 2030, we foresee a development of $7.25 trillion US, boosted by an average growth rate of 8%. Diseases within the country will have decreased to a point where malaria will no longer represent a threat to the Indian population. The latter will be a technology generation, service-oriented, and executing market and policy reforms. Japan, in its part, is currently working on the massive development of hydrogen cars. Within 13 years, there will be over 800,000, sustained by 1,900 fueling stations. Such production will be led by Hyundai, Honda, and Toyota. Besides becoming highly eco-friendly, the country will have turned into an independent energy on foreign energies. Thank you very much. We're going back to the studio.
Thank you, Fernanda. That sounds quite interesting, and let's see what happens with Asia in the next couple of years. Now, Emily Hernandez has connected with us. Emily, what do you have to tell us about the future of Europe?
Thank you, Fer. I am now at Brussels, outside of the European Parliament, where there has been a meeting discussing 5 main different topics regarding the changes that Europe will have by the year 2030. The first topic discussed was the aging population. Europe is known to be a region where there are very low fertility rates, and these have decreased over the years. In 2010, the fertility rate was of 1.62, in 2014 it was of 1.58, and just in 2016 it was of 1.5 births per woman. This means that Europeans are growing older, and if these rates continue to decrease over the years, by the year 2030, the most part of the population of Europe will be over 65 years old. This means that Europeans are growing older, and if these rates continue to increase, a large proportion of the population of Europe will be over 65 years old by the year 2030. This decreasing rate has been acknowledged to the fact that many European families feel very insecure about their economic and job stability. The aging population of Europe will represent a major problem for future European governments, because there will be a lot of expenses regarding pensions and health insurances, bills that will be paid by the young part of the population, which is now very reduced. One action that could be taken to avoid this problem is to delay the retirement age in order to increase productivity and avoid this issue in the future. The fourth topic discussed was the role of the European Union by 2030. This organization hasn't aimed yet at merging European people into a single identity. This has caused many popular feelings against it, and now that the United Kingdom is out of it, they will focus more on creating new policies. Military and power tensions between the United States and Europe will lead to the creation of a new European common policy outside of NATO, where they will invest more in military capabilities in order to even out USA's dominance. And also, countries like Bosnia, Serbia, and Kosovo will finally join the European Union. Turkey, on the other hand, still won't be a part of it, despite of its multiple attempts to join it. And finally, what will be the power of Europe by 2030? By this year, the world will be more fragile, and the hegemonic power will be focused on the United States and China. While Europe will have a slow aggregate GDP growth, Germany still will be the leading country of the European Union, and the continent will still remain as a great power in terms of trade volume, number of transnational companies, and technological capabilities. But even if the European Parliament wants to, they won't be able to afford a sizable military or to extend their power. That's why Europe will become a great partner instead of a great power. They will speed up trade, foster research, and reduce conflicts. Europe will become the world counselor. Thank you, Fer, and now we're back to the studio.
Thank you, Emily. We've definitely started to see the beginning of something in this time of fragmentation within the European Union. We'll keep in touch for the coming updates. Meanwhile, tensions continue to thicken in the Middle Eastern and North African regions. Angel is there in Aleppo to tell us what is yet to unravel there.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about Middle East and North Africa. Nowadays, the stability and economic growth is in Middle East and North Africa is one of the worst regions around the world. There are multiple reasons about this situation in this region. For example, international terrorism, excessive international migrations, millions of people are in poverty and are unemployment, civil wars like Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and other countries. And there are millions of refugees and displaced people. According to ACNUR, Syria is one of the most violent countries around the world. In consequence, the violence is expanding in the region and maybe to Europe and other countries of Africa. Also, there are many people of Syrian refugees in other places, even Europe, and this is affecting the security in that continent. Other important thing is that in this region we can find the most important terrorism group called ISIS. ISIS is one of the most dangerous terrorist groups in the country by the violence, by the organizations, by the power. And right now, United Nations is taking strategies in order to counter them, and in the future, international community could create an international agreement in order to support this region to eliminate this terrorist group. Experts of geopolitics determine and analyze different trends in this region taking into account the current problems and trends lying in the future. The first one is there in this region exists one of the powerful group in the country about oil, called Cooperation Council for the Arab States of Gulf, who has great power in oil and hydrocarbons. This country have 41% of the oil reserves around the world. However, according to National Intelligence Council, these countries have to change the main incomes in order to get economic power, because with the technology in a globalized world, this country need to diversify the resources in order to grow the economy. Other point important is that if Iran becomes an powerful military country, the instability will be more in this region. Why? Because Iran could be a powerful country in order to fight with other countries like US, Russia, and North Korea, to counter nuclear weapons. Other thing is the price of oil and hydrocarbons right now is changing. However, it's a possibility that in 10 years it could increase. If the oil improve its price, all these countries in this region is going to get more economic power, so they is going to help to other countries in this region. And the conflict between Israel and Palestine is going to continue for many years, maybe until 2030. However, for National Intelligence Council, Israel is going to expand more and more its territory. However, this country is going to continue. Finally, this region is going to tend to be fragile and unstable, because all the current problems and difficulties for the future. However, if the powerful country in oil gets power about the price, about the other relationship with Asia and Europe, they can support to other countries in this region. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel, for the information. We hope that this area will find stability in the near future. Now we will go with Gabriela to the Sub-Saharan Africa.
Sub-Saharan Africa's role will change dramatically in the mid-future, according to the U.S. National Security Council. Talking about education, which is the basis of development, it is important to mention that Sub-Saharan Africa is now having a teacher crisis, and according to the growing rate of population, this will continue being worse. For every 100 kids needing a school in the present, there will be 142 children in a scholar age by 2030. In economic terms, it is also important to mention that 40% of sub-Saharan population lives under the poverty line with less than $2 per day. And this is important because it is highly correlated with the fertility rates, because it is said that the families with the less income are the ones that have more children. And we have to pay attention to this in the near future. As previously mentioned, and according to the UNESCO Global Report of 2030, population will continue growing due to its high rates of fertility and the amount of women in reproductive age. This is not totally positive, because also as Sub-Saharan Africa is with high fertility rates, it is also one of the regions with the highest mortality rate of children. It is believed that this may change by 2035 by increasing the life expectancy from 58 years to 65, which is the pension age. With this continuous rate of growing, there are regions such as Nigeria, which will represent the 6% in the future of births of the global community, and Mali, which have 6.8 children birth per woman, that will need a special attention. But this can only be attained with investment in education for women, girls, for their empowerment, and promoting feminist geopolitics. Also, it is important to invest in the area of reproductive education in order to make better the family planning and stop the overpopulation of the region. Also, it is important to mention that Sub-Saharan Africa will expect or will have an urbanization process that will lead the 60% of population to live in cities by 2030. In sociopolitical issues, investors, society, and the government will have to face several challenges. One of them is the technology, because if Sub-Saharan Africa doesn't start to develop their own technology, they will continue to be dependent of non-African producers. So that is why it is important the investment on education, in well-trained teachers, and offering a higher competitive education. Also, another matter of concern is urbanization, the income growing, and taking advantage of the demographics. It is believed that this overpopulated region could be negative, but if it's well used, they can take advantage of this by offering cheap labor and to reaching those areas in which they have a scarcity of employees. That it might sound negative because there will be a migration from Africa, but also people will be interested in investing in this region. Talking about national security, the main problem in the past were large-scale conflicts. These were due to massive killings and other problems. Nowadays, the problems are maybe about a smaller scale, but are directed with the government due to their incapability to deal with sub-state terrorist groups, and also to their incapability or failure to create governance systems with a democratic ideology. If investments, improvements of the government, and better conditions are not offered by 2030, small-scale conflicts will continue, and they will be about electoral violence and a conflict about resources like land and water. That's why it's important to promote an ideological movement of democratic system in this area. This is my report. Let's go back to the studio.